Hey Angela, how are ya?
Hey,
I am so great, Anne and Blake. I am so happy to be here. Yay! So let's talk about your show. It was great because both Blake and I had started a thing called the Solo, and you signed up to want to further writing a particular piece. Talk about it. Well, for 30 years, I've been meaning to write a piece based on these stories that my mama found when granddaddy died. And I just, never got around to it. Things just got in the way. And my first ambition was to get it done before Mama died, but that didn't happen. So when she died a couple of years ago, I thought, oh, I've just got to do this for her. And when Annie and Blake reached out and said we would love to help you develop a show, we're doing this workshop this summer. Why don't you come over? I go, oh, this is the universe going, hello. And and the rest is history. I mean, it was a wonderful workshop. My they gave me you guys
yeah, here we
and
are.
gave me such great guidance and inspiration, and it just flowed from there, and I really appreciate it.
Tell us a tad about the workshop. We obviously know what it is, but for those who don't, um,
What was your
tell a
experience?
little bit about that experience.
Sure. Well, it's very informal. It's in their lovely living room, accompanied by their cat. And we all sit around and have our various writing instruments or tablets or computers or whatever. And Annie leads us through some acting exercises to kind of loosen us up and get our brains flowing and our creativity juices going. And Blake talks more about technical aspects, and they both have such wonderful theater stories that gets us all juiced up about creating. And the people, there's only like, I think there was 5 or 6 people total gathered around. And what I loved was that each one of us had such a different background, such a different story to tell. And it kind of gets you juiced to tell your own story. So we went through, and they would give us writing exercises to get our juices going. And it was like a wonderful combination, composition and acting class. Good. That's good. That's really good. Again.
I will say for us, and I'll speak for Annie too. We, I mean, we learned tremendously from this process. We weren't quite sure what it would look like when we started the solo.
We
Um,
had an idea.
but what we always do is work with and teach to the piece. It's the way we teach as teachers anyway. So, and each piece was different and had different concerns and different methodology, a different way of presenting it. Um,
Well,
but
and also, don't you think, just like every actor approaches acting different,
yeah,
they have different training.
sure.
A director, if they're smart, doesn't try and work with an actor, whatever their training was. You have to very quickly understand what that person is and work so that you're all make sure you're in the same play. Don't you feel it's the
Yeah,
same with writers?
exactly. And I,
Right.
I think people like you, Angela, who come to us, it's almost like yes, you got the tap on the shoulder. Um, there's something very organic about all those 6 people, and I believe in that people come to us at the right time, and it works that way.
And
Um,
solo is very lonely
yeah,
when you do it by yourself. You should
sure.
find at least someone to be your outside eye, which is the audience. But what's nice about having the 6 of you together is that you created a fellowship with the
Yes.
idea that you guys could call each other or email each other and say, "Hey, look at this. What do you think?" And all those other 5 people are planning to attend your show because
Yeah.
you're part of the sisterhood. You know.
Yeah, it is
The
a
traveling sisterhood.
sisterhood of the solo. This is great. So you were getting close to completing or getting an idea of what the completion might be during the solo. You knew that you had something that you were almost going to be ready to present. So tell us about that time at the end of the solo and up to where we are now.
Yeah, because you said, wait a minute, I got an idea, which changed my whole focus.
Right, right, exactly. The first initial workshop in July, I believe it was, I had this focus of telling my story. And I, for some reason, I guess it's just the little old Southern girl in me, where Mama always told me, don't draw attention to yourself. It just made it impossible for me to really push forward and just keep writing, until one day I realized, oh, why why really am I doing this? Am I doing this to promote myself? No, I am doing this for Mama, because I always told her I'd do it, and I'm just going to do it for her. And once that shift happened, the second time we came back in November, I believe it was, I wrote it. I wrote it actually. I had put off working on it because I was just like, oh, I can't do this. I can't do this, until Annie said, okay, we're going to do this next week. And I go, oh, I guess I did it. Better do something. Yes, I'll do it. I'm going to do it. And the day before the workshop, I switched that focus, and it just flowed. It just flowed out. So
It
I
sure did.
really, I really
It
appreciate
was,
that.
it was fun to watch what you came in when you first started, and
Mhm.
where towards the end of that first summer where you were, and then when you came back, it was like it
Right.
was fantastic to watch.
And that work you did just prior to the second workshop is that represents something, because we always say solo writing especially is really lonely.
Mhm.
Um, Writing itself can be a lonely process too, but solo especially, not especially, it is. It's a very lonely process, and you're just assuring me that this idea of gathering a group together is has even more purpose,
Mhm.
because it's reflection off of
Mhm.
each
Mhm.
other, and it's all, and also it gets you moving.
Mhm.
We all do our homework in very different ways, and or our work alone in very different ways, and this gives you a deadline, gives you all kinds of and a voice, and you know that you're going to be presenting something to, at least to this group, and therefore your voice starts. It's a really interesting thing you say also, and I think that's what's unique about this piece, that you talk about not wanting to be a braggart as a Southern girl, and because it's not unique to Southern girls. It's unique to anyone writing anything that's a bit autobiographical.
Mm.
How did you find your voice in this? First of all, would you tell us the bulk of this piece as you present it is your grandfather's writing, isn't it?
Correct.
Great. Now you supplement it and you embellish it with um, your own pieces, and some of your own writing, and um, but how did you find your voice there?
Well, let's see. Again, I'm going to bring it back to Mama, and the fact that just Southerners and my grandma, um, mother's mother, uh, they're just born storytellers, and I learned how to tell a story by listening to them. And as I was writing the connection pieces, I was drawing on the memories of the stories that they told, and then embellishing them with embellishing those memories and supplementing those memories with my own memories. And it just flowed from there. And I have a very, of course, a Southern accent, because I grew up in North Carolina, Tennessee. Um, what I've had to be really careful about, technically my voice, is that I want the connecting pieces to sound like me today, as opposed to, and then read the stories in my granddaddy's voice, or my great granddaddy's voice. And that has been an interesting acting challenge. But does that answer your question?
Yes, it
Yeah.
does.
Yeah.
More than I ever expected. That's
And then
beautiful.
you also had the idea of singing. Talk about how that developed.
Oh, well, I come from a long line of singers. And my mama's mama was classically trained and was the best singer in Roane County, Tennessee, and was sang on the radio and all that kind of stuff. And my mama was a pianist and also a singer. And my daddy was he was a great, wonderful classical opera singer and teacher. So music's just been always part of me, always part of me. Um, so when I envisioned this piece from the very beginning, even before the solo, I had always thought I want to turn this into an entertainment that has music with it. And the music that I think complements these stories to me is bluegrass or old country music. Yeah, in fact, originally when I was researching the music to put with this, I thought, oh, I'll just look up. I wanted it very authentic. I want 19th century folk songs. And I could not find any real treasure trove of 19th century folk songs that weren't murdered ballads. Now, I didn't want a show with murder ballads in it because that was not the story I was telling. so I kind of inched over to bluegrass, which is a much happier genre.
I think so. And they're beautiful. I love the way you wed the music that you did. Then you had the idea of, instead of singing with a track, you asked the question, can I have live musicians? Talk about that.
Oh, yes. Well, being a professional musician and from a family of professional musicians, I always loved the collaborative art of singing with an accompanist, even if it's just a pianist. I've done many a show, as I know you guys have, with click tracks, and I think it just cuts off the artistry of it. I understand why a lot of theaters do that. It's cheaper. But with this small collaborative experience, I wanted to bring as rich a background and as rich a soil as I could for these songs.
Exactly.
That's great. And you've helped me to even more define what solo is. Because, because the fact is, there will be 5 of you on stage, and but it is your play, and it's your grandfather's stories, and they are supported. Those stories are supported by 5 people, and one of them is you, who become the main character.
And it's like cabaret. You have a solo cabaret artist doesn't do it to a track. Yeah. There's the musicians and band and sometimes drummers and all that stuff that are involved in it. It's still considered a solo cabaret show because the focus is on the main person out there.
Right.
And I remember you asking, is it all right if some of them get highlighted in the singing? And I thought, well, why don't we just keep that right now to be the background, because that actually heightens you better by having they have that kind of support than having a duet with someone.
And the audience will see them playing a song independent of you, which is great. Yeah. I think it's part of the show. And in a way, it's your overture.
It's your overture.
It is.
And you may find, if you are taking this around, there may be places where you will not be able to bring musicians, and you may have to have them record for you and do it with a track. That's the one thing I like about solo theater is the more versatile you can be. Can I do this show with a chair? Can I do this show with a set? And if you can do it, can I do my show in an hour? Can I do it in 90 minutes? Is the more versatile you can make your piece, the more fun you have.
And I think when you take the same musicians who have been with you on stage and live and record them for an accompaniment, that becomes different than a click track, which often is what you have to use it because it's out there already.
Right.
And they've experienced you, so that they will remember that when they play.
We found that with Paula Broadwater, that people thought her pianist was off stage.
That's right. I saw that show.
So we were all surprised by that. There is, this is not an easy these are not easy stories, and I think that what's beautiful about what you're bringing to this is your ability to bring the dark in as well, because we know that there's some darker stories that were taking place during that time, and you don't shirk. Is that a word?
I love shirk.
You
It
don't.
goes with my
Yeah,
shirt.
You don't hold back with some of that, um, and I think that's very important because we know how important dark is with light. Um,
And you allow your emotional life to really come through this. It
Oh
may
my gosh.
be
Yeah.
granddaddy stories, but we definitely get your emotional life through it.
Tell us about your short travel between from. Ooh, do I tell that? Do I say this? How much of this can I say? What does this say about my grandfather? What does it say about my family? To what you finally decided to tell.
Yeah. Um, I I actually got the first feedback I got was from the little read through that you guys hosted for the rest of my solo workshop folks. And one of the comments was, I felt a little it felt a little jarring because that's when I actually read the whole story. They said it felt a little jarring to hear you, Angela, read those words. And I was like, well, that's what's written. but but then I started thinking, oh, and then I showed the piece to a playwright friend of mine. I showed the piece to my Black pastor, and I always get great honest feedback from my husband because he's not a theater person, but he's seen a lot and he knows what works for him, and he's very honest about what doesn't work for him. And he's like the general audience that I want to be playing to. And all of them said, this story, if you read that story, you are changing the play. You are changing the focus of the play to go in a whole nother direction. If you are prepared to do that, by all means do that. But it's going to just bring it way down. And if you want this to be a celebration of your family and your history and your mama, then you can't put that whole onus on it. So I went back and forth. I mean, I really went back and forth as to whether just to take it out completely or what to do with it. So what I ended up with everybody's input, and thank you gods for those inputs. I've kind of told my story about reckoning with this in my family and how I'm not done reckoning with it. And I don't know if I ever will be. And I see, I get emotional already.
Yeah.
And it's a thing we all will still be reckoning with long after the show's over.
Right.
This is what brings the depth to this and the profound nature of this piece. Because I think when we tell the truth, I keep saying this, when we tell the truth, that's everything.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, this is true about history.
I think the audiences that come and see the show are going to be thrilled.
Oh,
You're a wonderful writer. I know a lot of it you feel is the words of your grandfather, but it's what you intertwine in it. It makes it such a complete, beautiful piece. I love your voice connected with it. You get the distinct characters of it, but your writing is so right there with the rest of this. You should applaud yourself.
Thank you. But I also want to give a shout out to my director, Vicky Daño, who's an old good friend of mine. In fact, I picked her to direct because she and I are sisters from different mothers. She grew up in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I grew up in Salisbury, North Carolina, 45 minutes away from each other, the same time. I mean, we're the same age. And in fact, her high school was one of my high school's rivals. And we didn't find each other until she moved down here to Florida. And we met in St. Petersburg. But we both have that very Southern sensibility. And she has really, one of the other comments that came from my read through at your place was that it could benefit with some staging. I think that was the nice way of saying, are you just going to sit there and read it? And Vicky, we've we we have just finished staging it, and she has really brought it to life. I mean, even more than I had imagined I would be doing. So it's going to be much more than me just sitting there reading stories.
Oh no, it's beautiful. It's going to be beautiful. Well, I hope everybody will come out and see your show,
Me too.
and then we'll take it to Broadway.
All right. And then, of course, there's the film rights.
And
Oh,
the film
yes,
rights.
the
And then we have the tour that goes all over Europe. As soon as Europe will let us back into their realm, that'll be great.
There you
Oh God.
Thank you for this.
Oh.
Thank you. Thank you for kicking my ass.
That's right.
Yay.
Absolutely. And I know you got more in you. So this is a road that you need to
Boy.
keep going down.
Thank you, darling.
Love you.
Yeah.
Both of you. Thank you.
I was born before my grandma came, and the first time I can remember her seeing her head was white with the frost of many winters. I became Granny's pet, and she thrilled me for hours with stories of her young life in Virginia and the hardships of the trip moving from Virginia to Tennessee. She told me so much about her colored maid, Barbara, her individual property. She told me so much about her best girlfriend, Miss Polly Poindexter, how they would go to big balls and dance for weeks at a time. The male members of the family became filled with desire for adventure and a wilder life and decided to move to Tennessee. After a year in too tame Middle Tennessee, they built a flatboat loaded with their household goods on it and put the women and children on wagons to drive through the roadless and unbroken forest while the boat wended its way down the Tennessee River, across the Ohio, and down the Mississippi, bound for the forked Deer River, up which they must make their way in some manner which was yet to be discovered. The boat would not float upstream. There was no steam or gasoline engines. There were no driveways along the banks to horsepower could be used as was done on canals. So, they felled some timber and constructed a narrow walkway which they attached to each side of the boat and then cut some long poles to push with. 2 teams of 2 men, one on either side of the boat, would alternate going to the front end, placing their poles on the riverbed, and walking to the back, pushing the boat ahead of them. After many days of struggling, they decided to rest. They tied their boat on the riverbank and proceeded to the woods to kill some meat. They had succeeded in killing 1 half-grown buck and 1 gobbler when they heard a rifle fire in the distance. Hush! What was that? Engines? While they listened in breathless silence, expecting to be attacked by a pack of Indians, the rifle cracked again. They were seized with consternation, rapidly trying to think of some plan to hide their boat and themselves until danger was over when the rifle cracked again. Some of the boys struck a trot, but Sturdy John said, "Stop, boys, and listen. If that gunshot we heard wasn't from Bill's Blue Mary, I'm a blue witch." "Well," said George, "if that was Blue Mary that spoke, the Injuns has either killed all our bunch and got all our outfit, or else our folks have beat us to the landing. Suppose you let Long Tom speak and see if Blue Mary answers." Now, Long Tom was the gun that had proved the undoing of the young buck and gobbler aforementioned. So, Long Tom turned loose a hearty bang, and almost instantly, Blue Mary replied, some nearer, and their faithful watchdog stuck his head toward the sky and let out a happy "Arr! Arr!" for he too had recognized the voice of Blue Mary. Then the boys understood. The folks in the wagons had arrived some days earlier than the boat, and those boys had gone down the river firing Blue Mary occasionally so that perchance they might be heard by the boys on the boat. Oh, imagine how those fellas felt. I cut all this. Oh well. But they have found each other and threw their guns on the ground and commenced to hugging and babbling like children as they told each other about their trips through the wilderness. Those were my ancestors, the settlers of West Tennessee. Cool.